Hello students, the remaining topic from the neck and face and from the mouth cavity is a pharynx that we are going to consider the topic. So first of all, pharynx is a part which is situated behind the nose. Pharynx is a wide tube that is the first part of the that is the part from where the food passes and the air also passes. Basically, pharynx is divided into three parts: oropharynx, nasopharynx, and laryngopharynx, which is related with the larynx, and the oropharynx that is situated in the oral cavity. It is a wide tube. It is the esophagus is tube like that. The tube superiorly increases in the circumference, and that is pharynx. So you can see your pharynx, some of the muscles that helps for the deglutition. So anatomically, deglutition is one of the part of the act of the deglutition, part of the physiology rather than anatomy. So first one is the definition, the plan of study of this organ. This is one of the expected 10 marks question from the paper first in question number 4, the pharynx. So pharynx is a Latin word, that is, it means the throat. It is a wide muscular tube situated behind the nose, the mouth and the larynx. Clinically, it is a part of the upper respiratory tract. In the first part of the respiratory tract, the air passes. So, it is a part of the upper respiratory passage where infection is very common. Pharynx is very common for the infections, especially that what we call as a pharyngitis, and that transmits the infections in the lower part of the respiratory tract. So, upper part of the pharynx transmit only air, the lower part below the inlet of the larynx, only the food, but the middle part is a common passage of the both air and food. The width, total width of the pharynx, it is differ from person to person, but generally there is the standard width of the pharynx. Upper part is widest, 3.5 centimeters, and non-collapsible. It do not get collapsed. The middle part is narrow, and the third and the lower part is narrowest part of the gastrointestinal tract, except the vermiform appendix. Then the boundaries of the pharynx. Superiorly the base of the skull, posterior part of the body of the sphenoid and basilar part of the occipital bone, in front the pharyngeal tubercle. You will get that pharyngeal tubercle in front of the pharynx. Inferiorly, pharynx is continuous. Inferiorly, it is continuous with the esophagus at the level of the 6th cervical vertebra, where pharynx ends and the esophagus starts. It is the level of that junction of the esophagus and pharynx is 6th cervical vertebra, and the corresponding to the cricoid cartilage of the anteriorly with the larynx. Larynx has the three cartilages, that is epiglottis, thyroid cartilage, and cricoid cartilage. At the level of the lower part of the thorax is at the level of the cricoid cartilage. Posteriorly, posterior pharynx glides freely with the prevertebral fascia, which separates it from the cervical vertebral body. There are directly the cervical vertebrae are there in the posterior part. If you palpate the posterior aspect of the pharynx, you will get directly the vertebrae, the cervical vertebrae. Then anteriorly, it communicates with the nasal cavity. As I have already told that pharynx is situated behind the nose, nasal cavities. So anteriorly there is a nose, a part of the nose or nasal cavity, the oral cavity and larynx. below the larynx, oral cavity in the mid. Now, thus the anterior wall of the pharynx is incomplete. Now the comparisons. There are three parts of the pharynx. One is the nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. On each part of the pharynx, on the side of the pharynx, the pharynx is attached to the medial pterygoid plate, pterygomandibular raphe, mandible, tongue, hyoid bone and thyroid and cricoid cartilage. Secondly, it communicates on each side with the middle ear cavity through the auditory tube. Pharynx is related to, on either side to the styloid process and the muscles attached to it. The common carotid, internal carotid and the external carotid arteries and the cranial nerves related to them. So at the sides, on the sides, three carotid arteries, it communicates with the auditory tube at the, that is Eustachian tube, what you say. Then the hyoid bone, thyroid, cricoid cartilage, tongue, mandible, pterygomandibular raphe, middle pterygoid plate. So these are the parts at the side of the pharynx, superiorly, inferiorly, anteriorly and posteriorly. So these are the various boundaries of the pharynx. So in the plan of study, you have to write the introduction, dimension and the boundary, superior, inferior, anterior, posterior and on each side. Now the parts of the pharynx. There are three parts. I have already told you there are three parts of the pharynx. Oropharynx. You can see in the mirror your own oropharynx. Then the you can see the nasopharynx. You can see oropharynx. You can see then the laryngeal part of the pharynx. It is very deep and below laryngeal part. So pharynx is divided into nasopharynx, which is a common site of that infections, the common cold, that watery discharge from the nose. It is that nasopharynx is a common site of the infections. In the oropharynx, it may get, many times it gets infected and infection transmit. Especially gram-negative bacilli infect the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx. The lower part of that oropharynx is a laryngo, which is related with the larynx or at the level of the larynx at the 6th cervical vertebra. Now, how these three parts of the pharynx is compared to each other. So, the comparative points of the three parts of the pharynx, nasopharynx, oropharynx and the laryngopharynx. First of all, situation, secondly extension, then how each of that part communicate with the other parts of the oral cavity, the nerve supply, then the relations of the nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx, then the lining of the histology, lining of the epithelium, then the function. What is the function? This is the act of the deglutition. So how it plays an important role, each of these parts of the pharynx plays an important role in the various functioning of the body. First one is nasopharynx. Situation, it is situated behind the nose. Oropharynx is situated behind the oral cavity and the laryngopharynx is situated behind the larynx. Extent of the nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. Nasopharynx, base of the skull, body of the sphenoid to the soft palate. Oropharynx, soft palate to the upper border of the epiglottis. Then laryngopharynx, upper border of the epiglottis to the lower border of the cricoid cartilage. Then communication of these three parts, that is nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. The anteriorly nasopharynx communicate with the nose. The oropharynx anteriorly communicate with the oral cavity above nasopharynx and below laryngopharynx. Then the laryngopharynx inferiorly with the esophagus, anteriorly with the larynx, and above with the oropharynx. The nerve supply of the nasopharynx is via pharyngeal branch of the pharyngoparietal ganglion, and the oropharynx via 9th and 10th nerve, and laryngopharynx 9th and 10th cranial nerve. The same nerve supply to the oropharynx and laryngopharynx, and to the nasopharynx the pterygopalatine ganglion. Now the relations of the nasopharynx anteriorly posterior nasal aperture to the nasopharynx, or posteriorly body of the sphenoid bone, and that is baso-occipital and anterior arch of the atlas. Then the presence, then the anterior arch of the atlas and presence of the nasopharyngeal tonsil prominent in children, and nasopharyngeal bursa, that is mucodiverticulum. Then the lateral wall of the nasopharynx is related with the opening of the auditory tube. Above the tube there is a tubal elevation with the tubal tonsil. Then the oropharynx anteriorly related with the oral cavity, posteriorly with the body of the second and third cervical vertebra, and laterally it is related with the tonsillar fossa containing palatine tonsil. Now the laryngopharynx anteriorly related with the inlet of the larynx, posterior surface of the cricoid cartilage and arytenoid cartilage. This is a singular cartilage of the larynx. Then the level, the posteriorly it is related with posteriorly with the vertebral column, that is 4th and 5th cervical vertebra. Then laterally the third part of the pharynx is related with the piriform fossa on each side of the inlet of larynx, bounded by, that is epiplotic, and the fold medially thyroid cartilage laterally. Now the lining of the epithelium, that is simply, in other words you can say the histology. The nasopharynx consists of ciliated columnar epithelium, the cilia hair-like structures, and the oropharynx contains stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, and the laryngopharynx is very sensitive to the foreign body that is made by histologically a stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Now the function of the nasopharynx is the passage of the air only, not food. It has a respiratory function. If the food particle passes in that nasopharynx, immediate reflex of the sneezing is there. You must have experienced many times. If any part, that irritant part passes in the nose or through the, or even from the mouth into the nasopharynx, immediately the sneezing is a reflex action. Secondly, second part, oropharynx, the function is passage of the air and food, both. And the laryngopharynx is exclusively for passage of the food, from where the esophagus starts. So this is a comparison of the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. So as one another part of that pharynx is the Welder's ring of nodes, or you may say Welder's lymphatic ring. That is also 2 marks question. That lymphatic ring, that makes the palatine tonsil, especially the Welder's lymphatic ring. It is in relation with the oropharyngeal isthmus. There are several aggregations of the lymphoid tissue that constitute Welder's lymphatic ring. The most important aggregation are the right and left palatine tonsils, usually referred to simply to the tonsils. Posteriorly and above there is a nasopharyngeal tonsil, laterally and above there are the tubal tonsils, and inferiorly there is a lingual tonsil. So a 2 marks question: what does the Welder's ring of nodes or Welder's lymphatic ring consist of? Palatine tonsil and lingual tonsil, and even that you may say that is the nasopharyngeal tonsils. So over the posterior part of the dorsum of the tongue, the lingual tonsils are there. So this is simply the anatomy, important parts of the anatomy of the pharynx. Now, clinical anatomy, very important, the infection to the pharynx, very common, is via upper respiratory tract, especially via nose or even through the mouth. The bacteria, especially gram-negative bacteria, they adhere to the mucous membrane, to the columnar epithelium, very common. It is the site of the infection. So hypertrophy may be there. Hypertrophy means enlargement of the घसा सूजणे किंवा घशाला सूज येणे due to the infection. It is simply a reaction to the irritant or any other infection. So hypertrophy or enlargement of the nasopharyngeal tonsil or adenoids may be there, may be obstruct the posterior nasal aperture and may interfere with the nasal respiration and speech, leading to the mouth breathing. तोंडातून श्वास घ्यायला लागतो. If there is an enlargement in the nasal passage, the patient has to take the breath from the nose. That is due to the hypertrophy, and hypertrophy of the tubal tonsil may occlude the auditory or pharyngotympanic tube, leading to the middle ear problem. If there is a occlusion of any embolus in the auditory or eustachian tube, to that due to that tonsil, that the tube may occlude and it derange the atmospheric pressure with the middle ear pressure in the middle ear. There may be difference and it leads to the pain in the middle ear cavity. Pain leads to the tympanic membrane. Severe pain is there due to the occlusion of the eustachian tube, and the eustachian, that embolus should be removed surgically via a tube, or even with the help of the thread is also one of the surgical removal of that embolus is done by the skilled or ENT surgeons. So infection to the pharynx is called as the pharyngitis. Very common, and there are a number of bacteria that causes the pharyngeal infections. Now that palatine tonsil is one of the part of the pharynx. Palatine tonsil, you can see even in front of the mirror, you can see you have to protrude your tongue, and at the side of the oral cavity, in the side of that pharynx, you can see the palatine tonsils. They are situated. That palatine tonsils are situated in the palatine fossa. Palatine fossa. So the palatine tonsils, a Latin word, palatine tonsil means the swelling. So occupies the tonsillar sinus or a fossa between the palatoglossal and the palatopharyngeal arches. Can be seen through the mouth. The tonsil is almond shaped. It has two surfaces, medial and lateral, two borders, anterior and posterior, and two poles, upper and lower. The tonsil is the medial surface is covered by the stratified squamous, the medial surface. Squamous epithelium continuous with that of the mouth. This surface is has 12 to 15 crypts. Then the largest of this is called as the intratonsillar cleft. So the largest crypt is called as a cleft, intratonsillar cleft. The lateral surface is covered by the sheet of the fascia, which forms the hemicapsule of the tonsil. The capsule is an extension of the pharyngobasilar fascia. It is only loosely attached to the muscular wall of the pharynx, formed here by the superior constrictor and by the styloglossus, but anterior inferiorly the capsule is firmly adherent to the side of the tongue. That is called as a suspensory ligament of the tonsil, just in front of the insertion of the palatoglossus and the palatopharyngiosus muscle. These are the muscles of the pharynx which are useful in the act of the deglutition and even in the act of the phonation. The firm attachment keeps the tonsil in place place during the soleil. The tonsillar artery enters the tonsil by piercing the anterior constrictor just behind the firm attachment. You can see even in the textbook diagram, the palatine vein is the external palatine or a paratonsillar vein descends from the plate of the loose areolar tissue on the lateral surface of the capsule and crosses tonsil before piercing the wall of the pharynx. The vein may injured during the removal of the tonsil or the tonsillectomy. So sometimes during the removal of the tonsillectomy is a very simple and very short timed surgical operation in which there may be a rupture of that palatine tonsil vein, and the bed of the tonsil is formed within the outward. The following structures, 5 structures are related to the bed of the tonsil. The first one is a pharyngobasilar fascia, superior constrictor and palatopharyngeus muscles, the buccopharyngeal fascia, and in front, in the lower part, there is a styloglossus and glossopharyngeal nerve. So these are the 5 structures which makes the bed of the tonsil. Now, still more laterally, there are facial artery with the tonsillar and ascending palatine branches. The internal carotid artery, and that is artery is 2.5 centimeters posterolateral to the tonsil. Anterior border is related to the palatoglossal arch with the muscle. Posterior border is related with the palatopharyngeal arch of the muscle. Upper pole is related to the soft palate, and the lower part is related with the tongue. The plica triangularis is a triangular vestigial fold of the mucous membrane covering the anterior-inferior part of the tonsil. The plica semilunaris is a similar semilunar fold that may cross the upper part of the tonsillar sinus. The intertonsillar cleft is the largest crypt. So there are 12 to 15 crypts. So the largest crypt is also called as intertonsillar cleft, and it is largest crypt. It is present in the upper part. It sometimes wrongly named as a supratonsillar fossa. The mouth of the cleft is semilunar in shape and parallel to dorsum of the tongue. It represents the internal opening of the second pharyngeal pouch. The peritonsillar abscess or a quinsy often begins in this cleft. Arterial supply of the tonsil. Main, there are 2 sources of the arteries, a branch of the tonsillar branch of the facial artery, and additional sources consist of ascending palatine branch of the facial artery, dorsal lingual branches of the lingual artery, and the ascending pharyngeal branch of the external carotid artery, and the greater palatine branch of the maxillary artery. Now the venous drainage. Lastly, all the veins of the tonsil lastly opens into the facial vein either, or palatine vein, or pharyngeal veins. The lymphatic drainage. All the lymphatics of the palatine tonsil lastly opens into jugulo-gastric group of lymph nodes. There are no afferent lymphatics to the tonsil. It is palatine tonsil is supplied by glossopharyngeal and lateral palatine nerve. As we have already seen, the pharynx is made by the 3 parts: nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. The histology of the palatine tonsil. Palatine tonsil, that is, comes basically the oropharyngeal isthmus. So definitely there is a stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium in the cross section. If you do the study of the microscopic study of the after the operation, so microscopic study will show stratified epithelial cells. Tonsils, the palatine tonsil develop from the endoderm. ventral part of the second pharyngeal pouch. Some part persists the intratonsillar cleft. The lymphatocytes are mesodermal in origin. Now the clinical anatomy. As all of you know, very common clinical anatomy of the tonsil, especially that is a clinical part, is relative in the childhood. So enlargement of the tonsil is very common in the school going children. So tonsils are large in children and they retrogress. जसं जसं वय वाढतं, as the age advances, they becomes atrophy. There is a physiological atrophy. Then the tonsils are frequently sites of the infection, especially in the children. Especially in the children, those who are related with the outside foods, junk foods, or even with from the ice cream, infection may spread surrounding tissue, forming the peritonsillar abscess. Maybe there may be formation of a pus in the peritonsillar abscess. Above the tonsil there may be abscess, and enlarged and infected tonsils often require surgical removal. Then the operation is called as a tonsillectomy. The knowledge of the relations of the tonsil is an important to the surgeon and even to the general physicians like you people. Then the tonsillectomy is usually done by the guillotine method. That is, hemorrhage after tonsillectomy is checked by removal of a clot from the raw tonsillar bed. This is the compared with the method for the checking postpartum hemorrhage from the uterus. So there are only two organs of the body where bleeding is checked by the removal of clots. So after removal of the uterus and after removal of the tonsil, swab is being kept, and with the help of the clot, the hemorrhage is being checked after the operative, the hemorrhage is being checked. So these are only two organs, uterus and tonsil, where you can check with the clot method the hemorrhage. So clot formation is incorrect. The tonsillitis is a cause of the referred pain to the ear. Tonsil infection, tonsil abscess असेल, tonsil enlargement असेल तर कानात दुखतं. So there may be a similar nerve supply, referred pain. कानात दुखतं, doctor कानात दुखतंय. Patient says that there is a pain in the ear. So the physician should have to open the mouth, see the tonsils first of all. Especially the patient is of a childhood age. Then the suppuration of the peritonsillar area is called as a quinsy. Quinsy is very common. Peritonsillar. Peri means the covered or the superficial. Peritonsillar area gets suppurated, is called as a quinsy. Then the peritonsillar abscess is drained by making the incision in the most prominent point of the abscess. सगळ्यात जास्त भाग जो सुजलेला असतो त्या ठिकाणी इन्सिजन कट घेतलं जातं and the pus is being removed. The tonsils are often sites of the septic focus, especially in the childhood. Such a focus can lead to the serious disease like pulmonary tuberculosis, meningitis, etc. is often a cause of the general ill health. म्हणजे सारखं आजारी पडणं, tonsil chronic infection may be there that may lead to the tonsils. So this is about the tonsils, the palatine tonsils. Hello students, I am going to show some parts of the oral cavity. These are two lips, upper lip, lower lip. These are the cheeks. Now you see, this is lower jaw, this is upper jaw. Upper jaw, the bone of the lower jaw is mandible, bone of the upper jaw is maxilla. Okay. Now this one is the tip of the tongue, the body of the tongue and the root of the tongue. On the roof of the oral cavity, this one is the hard palate, this one is the soft palate. Now you see the uvula, that is second tongue, you can say uvula. See, जीभ बाहेर काढा. दिसते काय त्याच्यात? हा, you see this one is the uvula. Can you see? This is the uvula. This one, and below the uvula there is a pharynx. There is a pharynx. This one, nahi, आता खाली. This one is a hard palate, and behind the hard palate there is a soft palate. Soft palate, uvula and pharynx. This one is a at the lateral aspect there is a palatopharyngeal fold. Palatopharyngeal fold, and in that palatopharyngeal fold at the lateral aspect these are two these are two tonsils. You can see the tonsils. If you can see at the tonsillar fossa, there are two tonsils. You can see your own tonsils at the palatopharyngeal fold in the tonsillar fossa. So these are the parts of examination. On outside the upper jaw, the parotid gland, parotid duct opens here. Here there is the opening of the. Here is the opening of the parotid gland duct opens into this outside the upper jaw. And now you see this one is the floor of the mouth. The floor of the mouth, or this one is the dorsal aspect of the tongue, which shows the frenulum and the veins in blue color. And here is the opening in the floor of the mouth. There is a opening of the lingual gland duct and submandibular gland duct. There is a opening of these two ducts. Now see, you can see here in this even the diagram which is given in the book. These are the various spot points for your examination. I again revise: upper lip, lower lip, moustache, lower jawbone, mandible, upper jawbone is a maxilla. This one is a tongue. Tongue is the oral muscular organ. Then roof of the mouth and the floor of the mouth. In the floor of the mouth there is a tongue, and below the tongue there is a floor. There are two openings: sublingual gland duct opening and submandibular gland duct opening. The parotid gland opens here outside the upper jaw and to the lateral, in between the cheek and the upper jaw. And the tongue-like process is called as a uvula. You can see again the uvula. You can see uvula. You can see uvula. This one is the uvula, which goes upward and downward. The uvula. If below this one is a hard palate. In soft palate, uvula and pharynx. Pharynx and palate, there is a fold, and at the corners there are two fossae at where there are tonsils are located or accommodated in the tonsillar fossa. So this is a practical demonstration of various parts in the oral cavity: tip of the tongue, body of the tongue, and root of the tongue is attached to the mandible and to the hyoid bone. So during deglutition, this is a deglutition of the food bolus or even liquid. The tongue is a muscular organ. It should be degluted because it is entirely a muscular organ having no bone. So it should be also degluted during the act of the deglutition. But it is only due to that the tongue has a root and it is firmly attached to the attached to the mandible below. So it is not degluted. Why tongue is not degluted? This is also one of the question in your mind. During the act, we eat a food and mix up the saliva and we deglute that bolus. But during that deglutition, why tongue is not degluted? This question must be come in your mind because there is a firm attachment of the root of the tongue. The body and the tip move here and there, but they can be degluted, but due to that firm attachment of the root, tongue is not degluted. So you can see the upper jaw teeth and lower jaw teeth also. Now we'll see the next part. Hello students, just we have seen actual demonstration of the various parts of the oral cavity. You can see in the mirror also, or even in the mobile, your own uvula, your own tongue, root of the tongue, the ventral aspect and dorsal aspect of the tongue, the sulcus terminalis, the upper jaw or the hard palate, soft palate and pharynx. Palatopharyngeal fold, at the corner there are tonsils, and the opening of the duct, it is very difficult to see the parotid duct opening. In the floor of the mouth there is the opening of the lingual duct as well as the submandibular duct also. So as we have seen that their pharynx is divided into three parts: the nasopharynx, oropharynx and the laryngopharynx. Laryngopharynx, which is related at the 6th cervical vertebra. Now the parts of the laryngopharynx, we have up till now we have seen the nasopharynx and oral pharynx. Now the lowest part of the, which is related with the larynx, anteriorly the trachea continuous and posteriorly the esophagus continuous with the laryngopharynx. When we eat, generally when you deglute, generally you know the trachea is anteriorly and esophagus is posteriorly in the neck. So the laryngeal part of the pharynx, it is also called as a laryngopharynx. This is the lower part of the pharynx situated behind the larynx, extend from the upper border of the epiglottis to the lower border of the cricoid cartilage. Means behind the larynx. There are three cartilages of the larynx. One is the epiglottis, thyroid cartilage from above downward, and cricoid cartilage. This it has the anterior wall. The laryngopharynx has an anterior wall. It consists of the inlet of the larynx, posterior surfaces of the cricoid and the arytenoid, a singular cartilage of the larynx, arytenoid. There are three paired cartilages arytenoid is a paired cartilage and singular cartilages are epiglottis, thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage. So arytenoid cartilage present on both sides. So posterior wall is supported mainly by the 4th and 5th cervical vertebra. Posteriorly, if you penetrate your finger in your pharynx for a cleansing of the oral cavity, you can feel some tonsillar glands in the at the root of the tongue, and even if you palpate posteriorly, the nails are there posteriorly. If you penetrate your index finger and middle finger in your oral cavity, at that time you can fill up that oropharynx only. So below to that there is a laryngopharynx which is very sensitive to the some irritants, and by which you can get a cough reflex immediately. Then the posterior wall is supported by mainly 4th and 5th cervical vertebra and partly by the 3rd and the 6th vertebrae. This is in this region, the posterior wall of the pharynx is formed by the superior, middle and inferior constrictors of the pharynx. Constrictors of the pharynx, they are the muscles. We will see in the next part the muscles of the pharynx. So this comes in the posterior wall of the pharynx. So lateral wall of the pharynx. The lateral wall, as if you open your mouth, you will get a lateral wall of the pharynx, posterior wall and anterior wall. Anteriorly there is a larynx. So lateral wall presents a depression called as a piriform fossa, one on each side of the inlet of the larynx. The fossa bounded medially by the aryepiglottic fold and laterally by the thyroid cartilage and the thyroid membrane. Beneath the mucus of the mucosa of the fossa, there lies the internal laryngeal nerve. Removal of the foreign bodies from the piriform fossa may damage internal laryngeal nerve, leading to anesthesia in the supraepiglottic part of the larynx. So sometimes missingly some part may get impacted into that fossa. Especially in the childhood, the children's play goti, the play of game, and they dilute even some of the grains like shengdana, watana. They make it in the childhood. They may get impacted in that fossa, and during the removal, with the help of the forceps, when the surgeon remove that, at that time there may be chance of the injury to that internal laryngeal nerve. So there are tricks to remove that foreign body from that fossa by giving a kick to the back of your head, and immediately comes out. So, and if surgical process is needed, the surgeon should be very careful that he should not damage the internal laryngeal nerve to avoid the injury to the internal laryngeal nerve. There is a permanent anesthesia to that particular area. So now the structure of the pharynx. The structure of the wall of the pharynx is composed of the following 5 layers from mucous membrane to interior. So first one is a mucosa, second one is a submucosa, and third one is a pharyngobasilar fascia, and fourth one is a muscular cord, which consists of the outer circular, very similar to all the alimentary tract, outer circular and inner longitudinal. Then the buccopharyngeal fascia that covers the outer surface of the constrictors of the pharynx, that muscle start, constrictor muscle start. Now description of all of these 4 layers. Basically this is the histology. This is the histology of the pharynx, the layers of the pharynx. The structure of the wall of the pharynx consists of the mucosa, submucosa, then the pharyngobasilar fascia, that is pharyngeal aponeurosis. This is a fibrous sheet internal to the pharyngeal muscles. This is the thickest in the upper part, where it fills the gap between the upper border of the superior constrictor and the base of the skull, and also posteriorly where it forms the pharyngeal raphe. Superiorly, the fascia is attached to the baso-occiput, the petrous temporal bone, the auditory tube, posterior border of the medial pterygoid plate, and the pterygomandibular raphe. Inferiorly, gradually lost deep up to the muscle, hardly extend beyond the superior constrictor. Now the muscular cord, the second cord of the pharynx, it consists of the circular, made up of the 3 constrictor muscles. In the muscular cord there are 3 constrictor muscles: the superior constrictor, middle constrictor, and inferior constrictor. These are the 3 muscles of the pharynx, which lies in the second layer of the pharynx. The inner longitudinal layer made up of the stylopharyngeus and the salpingopharyngeus and the palatopharyngeus muscles. So 3 muscles are there in the circular cord and 3 muscles are there in the inner. These muscles are, we will discuss these muscles in the next part. So the most outside part of the pharynx is the buccopharyngeal fascia. That is the last part that covers all the pharynx. That is the outer surface of the constrictors of the pharynx, and the extends forwards across the pterygomandibular raphe to cover the buccinator. Like the pharyngobasilar fascia, the buccopharyngeal fascia is the best developed in the upper part of the pharynx. Now between the buccopharyngeal fascia, that is most outside fascia, and the muscular cord, there is a pharyngeal fluxus of veins and nerves. That means in between the mucous membrane, muscular cord, and in between the outside, that is the buccopharyngeal fascia, there are veins and nerves lies in that in between these last 2 layers. Now the muscles of the pharynx, just we have discussed, there are 3 constrictor muscles, and interiorly and outside there are 3 outer muscles. The constrictors of the preliminary remarks about the constrictors of the pharynx. The constrictors of the pharynx, just we have discussed superior, middle, and inferior. These are the 3 constrictors. Now the muscular basis of the wall of the pharynx is formed mainly by the 3 pairs of the constrictors on right and left side. There are both separate muscles on right and left, superior constrictor, middle constrictor and inferior constrictor. The origins of the constrictors are situated anteriorly in relation with the posterior opening of the nose, mouth and larynx. From there, the fibers pass into the lateral and posterior walls of the pharynx, the fibers of the two sides meeting in the midline of the fibrous raphe. The three constrictors are arranged that the inferior overlaps middle, which in turn overlaps the superior. The fibers of the superior constrictors reach the base of the skull posteriorly. In the middle line, on the sides, however, there is a gap between the base of the skull and upper edge of the superior constrictor. This gap is closed by the pharyngobasilar fascia, which is thickened in this situation. The lower edge of the inferior constrictor becomes continuous with the circular muscle of the esophagus. The muscles develop from fifth and sixth pharyngeal arch. That is given in the table in the development of the various parts of the pharynx. The origin of the constrictors. Superior constrictor takes origin from the pterygoid humulus, that is pterygopharyngeus, and the pterygomandibular raphe, that is buccopharyngeus, and the medial surface of the mandible at the posterior end of the myloid line. We have seen the myloid line during the I have taught you the some features of the mandible, the myloid line, that is passing from the interior aspect of that ramus and the body of the mandible, the myloid line that separates interiorly. Then the side of the posterior part of the tongue, that is glossopharyngeus. Now the middle constrictor takes origin from the lower part of the styloid ligament, lesser cornu of the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone has two cornu at the side. It is like this. The cornu, the terminal part of the hyoid bone is called as a cornu. Upper border of the greater cornu of the hyoid bone. So that middle gets originated from the hyoid bone mainly. Inferior constrictor has two parts. The one part from the thyropharyngeus arises from the thyroid cartilage, and the second part that arises from the cricoid cartilage of the larynx. Now the thyropharyngeus arises from the oblique line of the lamina of the thyroid cartilage, including inferior tubercle, and tendinous band of that crosses the cricothyroid muscle and is attached about to the inferior tubercle of the thyroid gland, the inferior cornu of the thyroid cartilage. The cricopharyngeus arises from the cricoid cartilage behind the origin of the cricothyroid muscle. Insertion of all of these three constrictors, superior, inferior and middle, all these constrictors are inserted in the medial raphe of the posterior wall of the pharynx. So they are inserted into the pharynx. The upper end of the raphe reaches the base of the skull, where it is attached to the pharyngeal tubercle on the basilar part of the occipital bone. Then the longitudinal muscle coat. The pharynx has a three longitudinal muscle coat. That is the name of these three muscles in the interior and longitudinal, interiorly circular and exteriorly the longitudinal muscles are there. There are three muscles. They are placed longitudinally. First one is a stylopharyngeus, that is arises from the styloid process and is inserted into the pharynx. The name of the muscle itself indicates where from they get originated and where they are inserted. The last word is for the insertion. The second muscle is the palatopharyngeus, that origin from the soft palate, that is palatopharyngeus. Then the salpingopharyngeus, that descends from the auditory tube to merge into the palatopharyngeus. So these are the three longitudinal muscles, three constrictors and three. So such a 6 muscles are there. Name the muscles of the pharynx. Superior, middle and inferior, they are the constrictors, and the stylopharyngeus and the salpingopharyngeus, salpingopharyngeus. These are the and the palatopharyngeus. These are the three longitudinal muscles of the pharynx. So we have seen this description of the structures between the muscles of the constrictor muscle and the longitudinal muscle. Some structures are also there, the features of these structures. So large gap between the upper concave border of the superior constrictor and the base of the skull is similar and known as the sinus of the Morgagni. This may be asked as a 2 marks question. What is the sinus of the Morgagni? That is a gap between the outer and inner muscle, especially superior constrictor and the base of the skull. Then structure passing through this gap are the auditory tube, levator veni, palatine muscle, ascending palatine artery and palatine branch of the pharyngeal artery. The structure passing through between the superior and middle constrictor muscles are stylopharyngeus muscle and glossopharyngeal nerve. Then the internal laryngeal nerve and the superior laryngeal vessels pierce the thyroid membrane and the gap between the middle and inferior constrictor. So the recurrent laryngeal nerve and the inferior laryngeal vessels pass through the gap between the lower border of the inferior constrictor and the esophagus. So in short, these are the structures in between the superior constrictor, middle constrictor and inferior constrictor and the outside longitudinal muscles. So these are the various structures. Now the Killen's dehiscence. The Killen's dehiscence in the posterior wall of the pharynx, the lower part of the thyropharyngeus is a single sheet of the muscle not overlapped internally by the superior and middle constrictor. This weak part lies between the level of the vocal folds or upper border of the cricoid lamina and is limited inferiorly by thick cricopharyngeal sphincter. This area is known as Killen's dehiscence. This is called as a Killen's dehiscence. Now the longitudinal or the laryngeal part of the pharynx, the nerve supply. Pharynx or the whole nerve supply of the pharynx. Pharynx is supplied by the pharyngeal plexus of the nerve, which are chiefly the middle constrictor muscle. Their plexuses are formed by the cranial accessory nerve, then the glossopharyngeal nerve and the sympathetic ganglia. The motor fibers from the cranial accessory nerve and the inferior constrictor receives additional supply from the external and recurrent laryngeal nerve. Now the sensory fibers of the pharynx. Pharynx has a visceral afferent fibers from the pharynx travels through the glossopharyngeal nerve and partly through the vagus nerve. That is a sensory nerve supply to the pharynx. The blood supply. Whole of the blood supply of the pharynx. Pharynx is supplied by ascending pharyngeal branch of the external carotid artery, ascending palatine tonsillar branch of the facial artery, dorsal lingual branches of the lingual artery, and the greater palatine pharyngeal and pterygoid branches of the maxillary artery. Lymphatic drainage. All the lymphatics of the pharynx lastly opens into retropharyngeal group of lymph node and deep cervical group of lymph nodes. Now clinical anatomy. Difficulty in the swallowing or deglutition is called as a dysphagia. Dysphagia means difficulty in the deglutition. गिलने में निगलने में तकलीफ. Pharyngeal diverticulum is nothing but the Killen's inhiscence. Just we have seen Killen's inhiscence. So that Killen's inhiscence is a gap in between the constrictor muscle and the outside longitudinal muscle. So all of these are about the pharynx. Now that deglutition is a act of after formation of a bolus of a food by mixing of the saliva, certain stimulus goes to the muscles of the pharynx for the deglutition, like this. So deglutition takes place by 3 constrictor muscles and 3 longitudinal muscles. Along with some the pressure of the oral cavity is also there, that produces closing of the mouth. You can't deglute by opening up your mouth. You have to close. You have to close the lips. So by opening of the mouth you can't deglute. So supportory muscles of the cheeks may also support, and the intraoral pressure increases and the food bolus is degluted. Food bolus is degluted. So although this is a physiological part, you should consider there are 3 stages of the deglutition. First stage, that is voluntary character. Second stage, in which you form a bolus, and lastly you deglute. In the third stage. It is involuntary. You can't expel out like a cattles. In the cattles, they can bring their the bolus of the food even from the stomach. So like that, after the third stage, it becomes difficult. So all of these are the parts of the deglutition. Is basically a physiological mechanism. It should be discussed in the physiology. Okay. A short structure that you must know is the auditory tube. In between the cheek and upper jaw, there is a auditory duct that opens. The auditory that duct from the oral cavity and into the middle ear. There is a duct. It is made by nature for keeping the balance of the atmosphere and balance of the middle ear, to keep this balancing or equilibrium in between the atmospheric pressure. So through the oral cavity, the air passes through the auditory tube in the middle ear. That pressure is being balanced. But this is called as a auditory tube, or also called as pharyngotympanic tube or eustachian tube. It is 4 centimeters long. I have shown you on the dummy or that demonstration where the exactly location of that opening of the auditory tube. Sometimes due to the ill hygienic condition or missingly, the food bolus may pass into that, or any there may be formation of embolus into that tube, and the tube may get blocked even by the infections also. So it gives rise to the increase in the pressure of the middle ear cavity, and it gives a pain. So that pain is only due to the blocking of the eustachian tube and not in the infection in the middle ear cavity. So this tube has a bony part. First part is a bony part, and secondly it is a cartilaginous part. So it is 4 centimeters long. So the bony part is very short. It is only 12 millimeters, and the cartilaginous part is 25 millimeters in length. Total length of that tube is 4 centimeters. So sometimes even some surgeons are so practical. I have seen some magicians. They don't have tympanic membrane. They can pass the thread in the middle in the ear, and they bring it through. They bring that thread in the mouth cavity. So they don't have a tympanic membrane. So some magicians I have seen, they don't have a tympanic membrane, and some people, so surgeons does that passing of the thread-like structures or any other sort of a rubber catheter is being passed into through that auditory tube, and the embolus or the foreign bodies is being removed or is being sucked by syringes to remove. Or that is a simple surgical removal of the embolus from the auditory tube.